Good morning. Don't quite have this camera leveled up. It's not very cold here in the desert. Going to be leaving in a few days. I can't wait to leave. When I get on the road, I've got some things here going that I really enjoy and I'd like to keep doing, but mainly pumping iron. Pumping iron is my godsend. It is my therapy. It is my relief. It is my counselor. I'm starting to get strong again, and I hate leaving as I'm just starting to get strong. I don't feel like I'm building much right now, but I'm getting a little bit strong. Not too bad. Can't wait to find out what my body chemistry is like. It's probably not supporting muscle very well, but I've got too many cooks in the kitchen, too many doctors. Little one's making noise there in the background. I'm sorry, it's just going to have to put up with it. She's getting a little bit more rambunctious, getting bigger. Seems like the day after she turned 6 months of age, she sprouted up a little bit more. What I want to tell you this morning is I'm not very happy with the world as I see it, and you shouldn't be either. There's not going to be any peace on earth, not this earth for a while. We had a blood moon last night, nice full moon, and the blood moon was not on the high holy day of ancient Israel. Quite often they're on the high holy days of ancient Israel. And I looked up to see if it was on one of the high holy days of ancient Israel. I'm going to be checking in with my buddies, asking them, because I wouldn't want to miss one of these. But the thing is that King David was coronated when there were, I think it was 6 or 7 sequential full solar and lunar eclipses on the high holy days of ancient Israel in a 3-year period. 6 of them, I believe. Could be wrong about that. A fellow that I know who, he's full of himself and he hangs out a little bit too much with the rabbis in particular and comes up with wanting to dominate the rest of us. So I don't appreciate his domination very much. I've had a knot in my stomach around this guy for a long time. Finally found out what he was up to. And it was bad enough I wanted to smash his face in. Yeah, I don't say that lightly either. I'm real serious about that because he was using intimidation tactics on the rest of us. If you love us so much, then why the hell are you using intimidation tactics on your brothers and your sisters? So, my friend, if you listen to this video, yes, I'm singling out you, but I'm not gonna put your name out here or anything. But I am very angry about that. I'm angry enough I should have smashed your teeth in and your face in. Instead, I just won't talk to you again. That's the way to handle things like that. You violated other people's boundaries, and I mean everyone's boundaries. And you got your brothers doing it too. Which is why I don't bother with them either, even though they're talented. This fellow came up with an algorithm for the orbit of the planets, the sun, the stars, the moon. Actually, for the sun and the moon in particular, in this algorithm. And he set the computer at work, and he discovered that he dated King David's coronation to about 1074 BC, I think it was, or maybe it was 941 BC. He dated it back to then, based upon this gospel of the sky, as he called it, the signs of the sky. Now, I'm not too big on astrology and all that, but it appears as though there is some application to that to the real world. So I'm open-minded to the possibility of that stuff being far more influential and applicable than what I want to realize. And why do I not like astrology? Because I believe the Bible says we're not supposed to be turning to soothsayers. We're not supposed to be turning to, to mediums, spiritualists. Yeah, that seemed to be with the vogue for not too long ago here. They're with the vogue. So there's going to be a time here in the near future. This fellow ran the algorithms, and he discovered that the only other time that there were going to be 6 or 7 sequential solar and lunar eclipses on the high holy days of ancient Israel, those being the Feast of Tabernacle, the Passover. There's a few others as well, but those are the big ones that we're commanded to celebrate in perpetuity, forever. Why does Yahweh tell us to celebrate those forever? Because those let us know what's happened and what's coming, and those are witnesses to his greatness, because he set this whole thing in motion a long time ago, and it's playing out just the way he set it out. So this universe, this part of the universe, is like a giant clock. It's set up like clockwork. Everything happens under Yahweh's will and Yahweh's design. So the next time we have 6 or 7 sequential solar eclipses and lunar eclipses, all in the high ancient holy days of Israel, it's about 2033. That's coming up not too long from now. I worked it out and figured it out that I will be an old man. I'm already an old man, but I'll be an old man by then. In 2033, I'll be over 80 years of age by then. So maybe I get to see the return. Yeah. That would be something to see, wouldn't it? I do feel as though I'm drawing towards the end at times. I feel as though I don't have much time left, but that's just between you and me. I may have a good rebound here. Like I said, too many cooks in the kitchen. What I mean by that is too many medical doctors. I don't like their approach. I don't like their undergirding philosophies at all. They're a bunch of jackasses who try to play God. Read about a guy who wanted to be God and play God in the Bible. He wasn't a nice guy. These medical doctors are full of themselves. I think now that we've had this medical industrial complex wreaking havoc over us for so long, and the medical portion playing a huge, obvious role the last 2 years, I think people are going to wake up to, how foolish we are to give them so much authority. How foolish we are to reward them so well, especially for their mistakes. The medical physicians, the medical doctors, killed more each year than probably all other manners and modes of death combined. The standard figure for a long time was 400,000 unnecessary deaths a year caused by the medical profession's mistakes and errant practices. Everything from prescribing the wrong combination of medicines to the cutting off of the wrong limb when a person goes in for surgery. You got to watch these guys. And when the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid changed the laws so that families no longer had access to their loved ones in the hospitals, that was a big deal. That was a communist move, folks. And in case you're wondering, I don't think anything bad can happen in Russia. The communists are Christians over there. Now, as you know, I don't care much for that word, that term. I consider it not the right word for my reading of the Bible. We are followers of the way, the faith of our fathers. But Christians and calling ourselves Christians, it doesn't line up with my reading of the Bible. But let's put that difference aside. Let's even call it a minor difference, because it's just a name. The main thing is that the bad stuff's happening here, and it's going to get worse here, because we have literal devils, followers of Satan, children of Satan, people with fallen angelic DNA running the show. And please don't point at the Jews and say they're all members of that class. They aren't. However, they do hide and harbor a significant number of them. And if you look at this current administration, look at who Joe Biden has appointed, and tell me that we don't find members of the Jewish faith in there overly represented. And look at the Supreme Court of the United States of America. Tell me we don't find members of the Jewish faith overly represented there as well. For the proportion of the country, there shouldn't even be one on the Supreme Court. But I think there's like 4. Yeah. And another 4 are Catholics. Catholics were antagonistic towards us during the founding of our nation. They weren't very helpful. And there's not one. Well, there might be one Protestant. That's it. Ain't exactly a white guy either. You all want to be racist, so let's talk racist. Look, God made everything, everybody the way He approved. And there was a branch of angels that rebelled in heaven and left heaven, cast down to the earth. And there were 200 of them. And that was 1/3 of the heavenly host. So you got them mixing their DNA here in with everyone else. And that's the most dominant DNA on the earth. It's not Negro DNA that's most dominant. Sure, Negro DNA is more dominant than Asiatic DNA and far more dominant than Caucasoid DNA. And again, why are we called Caucasians? We're named after the Caucasus mountain range. Ooh, where did we come from before then? Before our grandmothers, that's a new word. Grandmothers and grandfathers crossed the Caucasus Mountains in about 622 BC. Or 750 BC, there were 3 giant waves. Some went around, some went over, some actually took ships out. Where did we come from before then? We come from primarily northern Israel. But we also have members of the southern tribes as well with us. The tribes of Judah are among us as well. And in case you're wondering, Germany means genuine. And the German people, the Germanic peoples, for the most part, are descendants of Judah. And Judah was to have the scepter until the return of Shiloh, the return of the Messiah. Why do we keep going after Germany? Why have we in the United States acted to destroy German industrialization? Why have we in the United States acted against Germany again? Gee, is there something behind that? Do you think? Why did we go after them in World War II? Why did a fellow write a book called Germany Must Perish? His name was Kaufman. Doesn't sound very Italian to me. Oh, he was Irish. That's right. He was Irish. I forgot. Kaufman wrote that book. Why Germany Must Perish? It wasn't about Hitler. It wasn't about the administration of the nation and their politics. It was about the people. Why do you want to destroy the tribe of Judah? The people who are supposed to maintain the power, the rule. It's because they're competitors. World War I. 51% of the United States of America was of German heritage. Yet they convinced us to go to war against our brothers and sisters in Germany. Why? Why did they target Germany? Before World War I, there were publications about 6 million Jews. Gee, 6 million Jews before World War I? Yeah, and after World War I, they tried to claim that 6 million Jews were slaughtered. Yeah. And in World War II, they claimed 6 million Jews were slaughtered. Now, I'll grant you, too many died, but it wasn't even 1 million. The real Holocaust, in my opinion, was to the German people in the city of Dresden, where at least 400,000 people were incinerated after about a week of firebombing by the Allied powers. What was done to them was a war crime. It was a Holocaust. It could have been as many as 600,000 people. It was mostly old men, old women, and young children. And they were firebombed mercilessly. There was no military strategic value to Dresden at all. It was Churchill's retaliation. And if you look into Churchill, you'll discover he was a member of the tribe. His mother's name was Jacobin, the descendant of the Jacobins. And if you look carefully into things, you'll discover that the leader of Russia at the time also was a member of the tribe. Wasn't acknowledged for decades after his death. But he also was a name changer just as well. And then your third great member of the Allies at the time, Roosevelt. That's pretty obvious, I think, isn't it? So you had 3 members of the tribes joining together to destroy Judah, to destroy those who were the chosen ones. Why? Because they wanted to pretend they were the chosen ones. I'm reporting on the biggest, the greatest identity theft in history. It's a crime. It hasn't been investigated. I've reported on it before. It doesn't get any traction because the members of the tribe control all of Western civilization and these governments right now. Now, let me speak in defense of some members of the tribe. The majority, as a matter of fact. The majority are not Zionists. The majority are decent people. They've been used and they've been attacked as well. As a matter of fact, Germany was the perfect example. You had good German Jews that were well established in society and were happy being Germans. They didn't want to not be Germans. They weren't being held against their will. They were the upper parts of that society. They made major contributions, and they were, like Flint, they were treated royally, very well. They were rewarded well for the work that they did, their contributions. Some of the greatest scientists in the world. But there was a problem. There was dissension among the Jewish people. And as my Jewish mother always told me, why do people want to attack the Jews? If they just left the Jews alone, the Jews would destroy ourselves. We Jews would destroy ourselves if the world just left us alone. They hate each other so much. And it's quite true. And I will point to a book to you for evidence. It's called The Transfer Agreement by Edwin Black. It took Edwin Black 5 years to write this investigative review of what occurred. And he said that Hitler might be rightly considered the father of modern Israel. Yes, you heard me right. I'm only going to say it once. I'm reporting it as a fact of history, and the evidence for that is in the transfer agreement. In the transfer agreement, we read very clearly about the details. And Edwin Black, I think it was his first major book. I don't think he's written anything more important than this book. But read it, and he is giving a rich report of the details of the negotiations of two separate groups with the Third Reich. Excuse me. Got the noise gates turned all the way up in these hearing aids so I can sneeze without blowing my brains out. Man, sneezing used to be such a painful deal with the hearing aids amplifying it. I'm so glad with these new hearing aids that they turn those noise gates up for me. It's supposed to be able to suppress the sound of a bullet, going off, but I don't really even want to try that. I've lost so much hearing already, and what little I have left is very precious to me. What I'm telling you is that we've had the biggest identity theft pulled off in history. And if we look very careful at the early scriptures, at the old parchments, if you will, what you're going to find is that there was a conspiracy, and that it was to undermine Adam, undermine all humanity. It was actually a major conspiracy, not by Satan, but by the Satan class of beings. 200 of them gathered on Mount Hermon. Mount Hermon is mentioned in the Bible a little bit. And in the New Testament, which are called the Scriptures, as opposed to the parchments, you will find that Yahshua, or Jesus, as you prefer to call him for the most part out there, he took his disciples to Mount Hermon one time. Now that's sort of slipped in there one time. It's just like, where is Mount Sinai? If you read the Bible carefully, I believe it's in Galatians, but it's definitely in the New Testament, or what we call the New Testament. I consider the Bible one work. I don't like to separate in the Old Testament and New Testament. That's one of those artificial things they did to create these artificial religions. It's in the Arabia. That's how it was mentioned in Galatians one time. Mount Sinai is on the Saudi Arabian Peninsula. It's in the northwest corner, the upper corner, if you will. Not very far over the border at that. And it is barbed wire, wired off. Nothing goes on around the place. We've got video of a couple from Mississippi who went there on 2 occasions. I do have video of the second occasion. I can't wait to get my things out of storage and get things organized. I think that blessing is coming my way. If y'all want to pray for me, pray a couple of things. That my family inheritance be restored to me. That I be made whole. I don't see how that can happen. I think that's impossible, but it's possible. And then also, Yahweh's will be done as far as the provisions for me. I'm not going to ask for any more or any less than what I got coming. He issued me, and like I said, if he wanted me to have a wife, he issued me one, but he didn't do it. That's okay. I tried a couple of times. I failed pretty miserably, so I learned my lesson. I'm not going to bother. A woman would really have to work hard to convince me that she was going to be worth hanging out with that much. Can't be trusted these days. I'm sorry, but that's pretty much for the most part the way it is. And the good women out there who are listening to me already know what I'm talking about more than I do. One of the things I did when I was younger is I learned that if you wanted to figure out a woman, you went to another woman. But then I learned you had to be careful because sometimes the bias was so strong, and that you wouldn't get the most truthful answer out of the one you went to. Women compete on so many more levels than men. It's not funny. We act like men are the stronger, and we act like men are the dominant. I got news for you. We men can't handle suffering at all the way you women can. There's a wonderful woman that's running for Attorney General for the state of Arizona. No, she's not running for Attorney General. She's running for Prosecuting Attorney for Maricopa County, I believe. That's right. God be with us. What a name. How do you forget that name? Even at my age, you're not going to forget anybody named God. God be here. Yes, I'll have to look it up. Anyway, I guess I forgot it already. God be here. It's not God be with us, but God be here. Anyway, marvelous lady. Yes, I talked with her. I talked about the name. I kept it really light. I just, and she wanted to emphasize to me that she wasn't as young as she looked. Well, folks, she didn't look that young to me. She looked seasoned, and she looked like warrior class. And I really mean that. She was born for the job, definitely. It's a calling for her, and I understand that, and I will be acknowledging that in the videos. She's prosecuted some pretty doggone ugly cases. I mean, cases that would make you or I cry that we couldn't stomach. Women can handle suffering that men can't. They can take care of people that are suffering and diseased up, whereas men can't even be in the same room. We don't have the nerve strength that women have. I guess that's my morning suck up to the women out there, okay? Well, look, we all were born from women, including you women. I mean, we don't have much of a choice but to acknowledge the superiority and the necessity and the majesty that's in that, as well as the bloody mess it is, too. I mean, it's not exactly a clean deal in several ways. At least we don't regard it that way, but I think we probably should. Folks, from what I can see, and I like listening to the Duran, I recommend that channel. We have a lot of evil going on here in the West. We again are waging war against our brothers. This is a weird war. The war is against Germany again. And the United States is taking its oil and giving it to Europe to get it through this period. And so we're going to have shortages in this country. I don't think it's fair that this administration acts like tyrants. This is a tyrannical administration. We have tyranny in Washington, D.C. It's a bunch of tyrants. It's one-party rule. And Mitch McConnell, I called his office and I let him know nobody cares about the Ukraine. All we care about is that jackass imbecile that's in the Oval Office, or whatever is represented as the Oral Office at this point. And we have the evidence. He's not there legitimately at all, and we get no say. And look at this jackass Merrick Garland, who, by the way, is a member of the tribes, and look at what he's enforcing against our people. Look at his attitude. He should be gone. He should be out of there. Oh, and as far as the Supreme Court goes, I was going to do an entire video on this, but I'll give it to you right now because you need to hear it. Yes, I think it's horrible people are violating the law. I think it's worse that the law is not being enforced. However, it couldn't happen to a better group of people. Look, you Supreme Court bastards, you gave us Roe versus Wade. It was against the will of the people by a long shot and against God's will, and it was piss poor legislation from the bench. And you gave us gay marriage against the people's will. You federalized something that shouldn't be federalized. I didn't even know if it should be done at the state level. I always thought marriage was something between that God did, right? That happened in the church. That's the way it was before World War II when we decided to issue state licenses on everything unconstitutionally. And we used to get married in church, and we used to put the marriage in the family Bible. And if there was a problem, and there were problems, we'd show up to the court with a doggone family Bible with our proof of marriage in the family Bible. Our birth certificates, our proof of birth was in the family Bible. Oh, and birth, by the way, these people in the New World Order spell that B-E-R-T-H, like a ship on the ocean, of maritime law, admiralty law. That foreign jurisdiction they have superimposed upon us to lead us captive in place so we would not recognize that we are held captive, that we have been deported from America into this horrible bunch of legal, it's not even legal, it's not lawful, it's a bunch of frauds going on right now. I listened to a fellow, what was his name? I mentioned it to the housekeeper yesterday. She's listening to the video. She's getting a little carried away with it. But he basically explains some of these hoaxes that they've perpetuated. And the hoax that our criminal justice system is. Apparently, the whole thing's corrupt. All of these legislators, administrators, judges, magistrates are getting paid for bilking the rest of us with their frauds, with their legal schemes. Early in the days of our young nation, we bought and consumed and read more law books, those little colonies, than all of England. And so when we were called into court, we didn't need attorneys, and we defined the terms for ourselves on the spot. So if you really want to get into the nitty-gritty of things and stand your ground, then walk into court and demand that they explain what those words mean of those acts that they are enforcing. Because I can assure you they don't know what they mean, and they're just people like you and me, and they don't understand that they're part of the beast system. Y'all wanted to know where Babylon was today? You're living in it. And you got Pharaoh at the head of it, too. Yep, Pharaoh and his money-making machine. Pharaoh and his fraudulent money-making machine. They're running the whole country today. Don't kid yourselves. They're the power today. Well, these marches in front of the homes of the Supreme Court justices, it couldn't happen to a better group. It really couldn't happen to a better group. And what I like about it is that when Senator Chucky Schumer, when Nancy Pelosi, when President Insane Hussein Barack Obama, he's president, folks, let's just call him president, and his face man, front man, Joey Biden, when they speak about, it's just public protest, and they endorse it, they're undermining authority. Let me tell you a little adage. Let me tell you a little axiom. This is axiomatic, boys and girls. This is the way the world runs. When you undermine one authority, you undermine all authority, including your own. So if you're out there trying to pretend you're an authority like Mitch McConnell, declaring that everybody agrees the number one concern is the war in the Ukraine, and Mitch, it's not. The number one concern is that imbecile in the White House. And the number two concern is the fact we don't have a republic because we have professional jackasses like you in D.C. If we had a real constitutional government, senators coming from their states, directly from the legislators, among the legislators of their states at that, you'd have been recalled a long time ago. And as far as those 90 kilos of heroin being found on that ship that's supposed to be yours, I tend to believe that. I tend to believe you know what's on your damn ships and you know what's going on. I don't like you very much. You stood there and said it was a good thing to take Trump out of office illegally. It was a good thing not to enforce the Constitution and not to bring in what the founders had provided us in checks and balances for correction. Turtle, how's your neck doing? Yeah. You've committed about the highest treason possible. How's your neck doing, buddy? Oh, what are those things up in D.C.? There's lots of high things. with wires dangling from them. Yeah, well, we even have the George Washington Monument, which most people don't realize is a giant penis in the middle of the country there for sticking it to the rest of us. The penis worshipping the priest of Mesopotamia, which is what our boy, or you Catholics, your boy, Simon the Great, Simon the Sorcerer, Simon the Great Petar priest from Mesopotamia. Yeah. Peter is spelled Petar for that jackass. That's the man who founded your Roman Catholic Church. He was your first bishop of Rome. Remember the guy you crucified? Who said he wasn't worthy to be crucified? So he talked you into crucifying him upside down, and he was able that way to die much quicker with a lot less suffering than Yahshua did. Look, folks, I think I've had it with that. I really need to get off of here and get about the day. Little girl's gone quiet. I got to tend to her needs and my needs. I like getting up early. My head is probably clearer. The associations that I make are richer. I know that some will, and analyze me and want to say it's loose associations. We could say it's free associations. We could also say that there's quite a bit in this noggin, quite a bit of knowledge, that I can't get it out there very easily, very readily, or very quickly. I will leave you with one thing in particular. Self-defense is blessed by Yahweh. It's time to reestablish the militias, to organize the militias. We don't need wild jackasses out there going off half-cocked. We need men who have other men of authority, wiser men over them, who can advise them and who can command them. Yes, we need some experts. Now, as far as my expertise, I'd love to be the Fuhrer. I'll just admit it. I don't want to be president. This place is too messed up. President's got no power. The power's all vested in that jackass Powell they just reappointed to the head of the Federal Reserve System, which is what runs this country today. And I will tell you this too. What was the first thing that boy Donald Trump did when he was sworn into office? What was his first action as president? Well, the very first thing is he got on that helicopter, which then became Air Force One. Where did he go? I'm going to tell you this. He went in a very ballsy move to pay homage to the real king, the King of the United States of America. He flew to Langley, Virginia, and went deep into the heart of the beast. He went into the CIA. And by the way, don't think of the CIA as one unified agency. Think of it as several different separate entities that often work against each other. Probably 7 or more entities right now, the CIA. It's not one. He showed up there to assure the CIA that he had their back. He paid homage to the real king. He showed that he knew who had the power, and he knew who could kick his ass and wipe his ass out if they wanted to, because he knew who killed Kennedy and a lot of other people. We got that one CIA asset who on his deathbed confessed that he killed Marilyn Monroe, ordered to do so by his superiors in the CIA. And he also killed more than 70 people during his career. He confessed it on his deathbed. Marilyn Monroe was murdered. It was a needless murder. She was an MK Ultra sex slave, the very rare type that they breed, if you will. They actually grow them up from the time they're little girls to serve the presidents, and to do stuff like that. Anyway, President Trump wisely went to the CIA and told them he had their backs and they could count on him. What I want you to know is that it was a ballsy move, because he went right into to the den of those murderous people who had killed previous presidents, plural. However, President Trump promised he was going to do some things for us, and he failed us. In the month of October, by law, by statute signed by President Bush, the senior, the older bastard, the records of the Kennedy assassination were to be released. Trump didn't have anything to do with the release of the records, except to deny the release of the records. Why? He said because if that stuff had been released, this government would have been totally compromised. It would have been undermined in such a way that maybe we would restore the original structure the founder gave us. And we could have done that during the first Trump presidency. But as it stands, this is going to be long and drawn out. These people, from what I can see, looking at the little signs I look at, from what I can see, looking at these little canaries that are around, these little birds that tell me things, what I can tell you is it's going to be long drawn out, and they're going to break us down bit by bit, because we're too big for them to swallow and take on all at once. There will be no return to normalcy. They're going to throw things at us all the time. This next thing is going to be a diesel shortage, which means a shortage of everything. It means prices going up on everything. You can thank Soros, you can thank Obama, you can thank McConnell, you can thank Pelosi, you can thank Justice Roberts, the Supreme jackass at the Supreme Court, who shouldn't be allowed to practice law. Anybody associated with Epstein and that Lolita Express should not be allowed to do what they've been doing. At the very least, have their licenses yanked. And what they really should be is just put in prison until they confess things up and until we have enough time to investigate them. Yeah, they're that wicked. Sure, I would do that. But I'm too old and I'm not stable enough to be president. I know myself. My emotions are too strong. You can't have anybody in that office with emotions that are strong as mine are. It's just not going to work. I took after my mother, and my mother was too hard on everybody, including herself. She was too hard on my dad, way too hard on me, injured me when I was a little boy, damaged me, and I suffer from that today. Was it intentional? Well, it certainly was negligent. I mean, today should be charged with crimes on that kind of bullshit. It's painful, folks. It was very painful when it happened, and my sister added insult to injury, so someday I might tell you about that. Anyhow, I do miss my mother. I'd love to talk with her again. At the end of her life, she said, "It's the Jews. It's really the Jews." And I was so proud of her because she had released from her mind these chains. She was no longer held captive by the prevailing brainwashing. And the next step was to show her how it wasn't the Jews. It was by those who say they are Jews and they're not. Just like it says in the book of Revelations. So that was the next step to shaping my mother's understanding of the world. But I was really surprised when towards the end she came to that conclusion. I had bought books and had them delivered to her at the house so she could read them first. She loved to read books. And there was a book that I got that was autographed by Jett, the attorney Jett. I bought another copy of it. I haven't been able to read it, but the autographed one is gone forever. Another one of the books that she bought and had on the shelves was in pristine condition. I had studied and I had marked mine up with red underline, yellow highlighting, and dog-eared the pages. And that book was selling for $400 a copy. And she had a pristine copy, but the executive of the state didn't know what he was looking at when he just got rid of the books. And I wished I had a chance. I was planning on getting that book. I got a book that's worth $400. I have a book that's worth quite a bit that's not recognized for its value yet. The title of that book is Defensive Racism. And as a result of writing that book, the FBI framed the gentleman up falsely on charges, put him in prison. He was working on the appeal of those charges when they had him killed in prison. His book was written so neutrally, so wonderfully, so masterfully that it didn't matter what race you were. When you read this book, you understand it wasn't a racist book. He was talking about the God-given need for survival, for self-defense, to be able to thrive. He wasn't writing about one race being superior over another race. He wasn't ranking the races. I mean, he wasn't as racist as I am. And I'm not racist, folks, because they're not different races. They're different species. So, and we don't even know what we are. So as I've said, do you know how much Cro-Magnon or Neanderthal or Denison DNA you have in you? Yeah, folks, we're all hybrids today. And some of you listening to this might even have some of that fallen angelic DNA in you. We're dealing with real offspring of the devils. And it's so mixed up that we're going to need divine intervention and help, inspiration to sort it out. And don't ask me to explain it to you in a simple fashion. I can't do that. I've looked at it and I've looked at it. I can tell you that it really bothers me that you had one group of Jews persecuting another group of Jews in Germany. Because when you look into it deeply enough, you find out that the Jews running those concentration camps were, they were Jews running those concentration camps. When you look at the man whose name we can't say, and I might not get away with it, I mentioned it once here. When you look at his troops, he had lots of members of the tribes there. The German Jews were good Germans. They wanted to abide under the authority under which they lived. They were better than the rest of us. That's why we went after them. I know. I was a little boy, about 7 years of age, when I moved to Germany, and I was scared. I didn't want to go there. I thought they were going to be real bad because I saw the propaganda from World War II, all those black and white videos which were sped up to make him look like a madman, by the way. They were all altered. The Germans wouldn't follow a madman. They wouldn't have followed someone shrieking like that, someone who looked so rabid like those videos made him out to be. I heard a real recording of a man's voice at normal speed. It was melodious. And believe me, German language isn't exactly music to my ears. I wish I had learned it. I have no real problems with it, but when he spoke, it really sounded like music. He was a very convincing fellow. He was also Jewish. Just a little piece of him. Yeah, I know all you skinheads out there want to go after me now for that sacrilege comment, but we don't really know, do we? We need to investigate that. He certainly didn't die during World War II, and remember, the Russians are the ones who gathered the evidence. They recovered the body, and it tested out years later for female DNA. Yeah, they didn't get him. He lived a long, long life. I don't have anything more today. As you go on your way, realize that you need to be kind to yourself. You need to be kind to each other. When you look at another two-legged creature that you don't know what you're looking at, you don't know if you're dealing with somebody with that fallen DNA, fallen angelic DNA in them, or you might even be dealing with a real angel who's in his proper state. You just might be dealing with a real angel there in front of you who's doing the will of Yahweh. So you don't know what you're dealing with. A buddy of mine calls them flesh puppets because we don't know what's inside. You certainly won't be able to recognize a sociopath when you run into one. I have troubles with that too. They aren't like us. They challenge all of the assumptions upon which my training in psychology was based. They are running the world. They do have a disconnect. They don't have a conscience. They're not wired up, hardwired. I mean, physical nerves like the rest of us are. They don't have I don't believe they have the feedback from the intestinal tract like we do. You know, the gut feeling, the gut wisdom. I don't think they have that. I think they've been deprived of that, and I think they've been deprived of the ability to connect with another human being fully, except to predate upon them. I hope that we don't have to go through much violence, but I also hope that if we have to, that we do so while we're strong. Any act that you take against this regime, which is what it is, I don't even want to call it an administration. This was put in by fraud. This was stolen for sure. I think that it can be taken out lawfully, legally, in a way that minimizes the confrontations. I don't think the left is going to allow that. I think these Supreme Court justices, having the left in front of their homes, need to realize their contributions to this entire mess. Yes, the Supreme Court has messed things up badly. And so I'm all for them getting marched on as well. I'm right up there with Nancy Pelosi and Chucky Schumer and President Joseph, what's his name? Robinette. Robinette, what kind of a name is that? Robinette. Biden. They all say that it's a good idea. Well, I think it's a good idea those gentlemen feel the pressure put on them, because they need to realize that's the pressure put on the rest of us. And they probably feel a need to defend themselves, to be able to defend their lives and their families, and maybe even want to protect their property too, which the Supreme Court wouldn't allow us to do. Remember, they took that right away from us. We should be able to defend our property with lethal force. That's my opinion. It's going to be coming to that, regardless of those Supreme Court decisions. And the Supreme Court might rule properly that it's okay for us to defend ourselves. I hope that's one of the lessons they've learned by having these marches. And to be honest with you folks, I don't want these justices marched on. I don't like them. I'd like them thrown out of office. I'd like every one of them thrown out, to be frank with you. I think I have grounds to impeach every one of those son of a bitches and get rid of almost all of them. Actually, there's only one on the Supreme Court I like. I'm liking Alito a little bit more right now, so it may be two. Yahweh doesn't like the shedding of innocent blood. What have we done? What have we done?